welcome to the Ireland on the Fly podcast about the people and places of fly fishing in Ireland. And on this week's podcast, I'm joined by Doc Sullivan, the well-known guide and fly angler based around Cornamona and the north of Lough Corrib. I had the pleasure of fishing with Tom for the first time a couple of years back, and I was meant to get out with him again this time around March, April, but unfortunately because of COVID that was knocked on the head. So instead I decided to talk to Tom about how he got into fly fishing and a guiding life, and how difficult it has been with the cancellations of recent weeks and what his plans are for the coming season. I also spoke to Tom about what his favourite type of fly fishing is, and you can really hear the passion come to the fore when he describes to me his love of nighttime buzzer fishing and how special it really is for him. Get in contact with Tom on tomdoc.com, and he's a great man to take you out and really show you the ropes. So without further ado, here's Doc Sullivan talking about his guiding career and life in fly fishing. But I first asked him about how he has been hit by the COVID crisis.
Like everybody else in Ireland, are really affected badly by the COVID, unfortunately, and that's the way it's been. It's his every aspect of life throughout the country. And with regards to me, I mean, all my bookings now are gone until the end of May, and probably I can't see myself guiding until July at the earliest. And I am talking to a couple of other lads. I think that could even be optimistic at that stage. But that's the way it is, and there's plenty of people in a bad state on account of this. So that's I'm just somebody else.
And Tom, are bookings being cancelled for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I've had a couple of guys, regular clients on now, and they've actually pushed back till September. Unfortunately, I had one group of guys, and it was Keith from Tunbridge Wells, Keith Nicholson, and it would have been his 30th year on the trot this year. And yeah, his 30th anniversary, and unfortunately he's had to cancel. But so he can't make it, and he can't make it later on the year, although he has said he intends to come over to the fly fair. So he's going to bring a couple of guys over to the fly fair in Galway. So hopefully that'll be going ahead as well. We don't know, but that's well out in November. So yeah, unfortunately Keith can't make it. A couple of guys were on earlier on about thinking of coming over and everything before the lockdown, but that's when the lockdown happened and when the seriousness of COVID hit home. That stopped. No, people aren't willing to travel and just don't want to.
Is it strange seeing the lake and the road so quiet now?
Yeah, it's very funny to see quiet, see the roads over quiet, the whole thing, the lake is quiet. And yeah, I think everybody getting that feeling. I mean, like when we go to do the shopping locally, the towns and villages, just eerie. Yeah, it's strange, it's
Mayfly time, that's when it'll really hit home, I'm sure.
It's really going to hit home then, because Mayfly time here and on the Corrib is carnival time. It's Mayfly madness. Now I know it's still a month away, but I think with the way that everything is happening and the lockdown, there'll be no carnival this year, unfortunately. But it's going to be very strange. But like you talk to people outside of fishing, within fishing, the general consensus is it's just strange times.
I tell you what, Tom, let's chat some more about the actual fishing itself. Hopefully brighten our day a bit. How was last season for you?
Well, last year, for example, early in the season, quite good. We did decent enough mayfly, but I had one of my best summer seasons last year, from July, August through to September. Had some fantastic fishing. Now, a lot of that has to do with weather conditions, and that we got good. I call it good conditions. Most people would call it really bad weather for the summer. But in that we had good windy days, good bit of cloud cover, a bit of rain. I had some fantastic fishing, and just to wet fly fishing, like as we'd say around here in Irish, the Shanval, the old way, the old style, and some really good quality fish, and plenty of action, just fishing, pulling wets, traditional style on the shallows, and also as well out in the deeps as well.
And what about fishing though in recent years? How's it been holding up?
Look, we are completely, we're slaves to the weather conditions, right? If you get proper conditions and right hatches, the fishing can be as good, like it can be as good as anything go before. I mean, all right, I've kept a diary from when I started fishing, And right, I can go back, I can go back 40 years now, because I was keeping a diary. I started keeping a diary when I turned 12, 13. And basically, it can vary from year to year. I mean, some of the best fishing I had was in the late 90s. But then again, a couple of years ago, I had one of my best Mays ever. I had a fantastic September fishing in the early 2000s. I had really bad September fishing. And then in the last couple of years, I think 2 years ago, the September fishing was absolutely amazing again. It varies. I mean, I love old angling literature, and particularly Irish literature. And, the Kingswell Moore, who wrote the classic, A Man May Fish. If you actually look at that, he comes to Corrib in September, 10 years in the trot. And I think you can check it. The best day he ever had in September was 9 fish. Okay. And I know definitely, I mean, you're talking there, that's between the 1920s and the 1930s. I know definitely at the end of the 90s and a couple of years ago, I had days where I had more than that number of fish, and clients had more than that number of fish in the boat. So, it does fluctuate. There are so many factors.
Are you concerned about the effects of climate change in the environment, for example?
Oh yeah, I would be concerned. I mean, you'd be concerned about things like that. The season's all over the place. You'd be concerned about other factors such as pollution, water quality, fish biomass in the water. I mean, you look at 1920s, 1930s, there was fewer species of fish in the Corrib than there are now. There's so many other factors. Yeah, but the only thing I do think the trout is a great survivor, and suffers even in adversity. It still manages to exist, And if things go right for it, certain factors go right for it, they will prosper. So that's what keeps us going out there.
You started a fishing diary when you were 12. So you were already taking your fishing seriously at that age?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. One of the reasons I started doing a diary was I remember always hearing from, I think it was, oh God, it wasn't my dad now. It was somebody else, and they were saying, how the fishing, because Pa used to go on about how the fishing used to always be better. Actually, he was a lot better than that. And then I found diaries belonging to my mum's dad. And while there was some fantastic bags, all he did was dab, and he did a bit of trolling. But there was bags there of 17 trout and whatnot. But then as you go through the whole diary, I looked, there was days 1 trout, no trout, 3 trout, and then I realized, God, they didn't catch a dozen trout every time they went out. I was led to believe that. So yeah. So, I'm very aware. It's a bit like the old thing that, you remember your school days were the best days of your life. Because your memory becomes selective and you only remember the really good things. So once again with angling literature, I have a book up there. I'm just looking at locks and lock fishing. I'm actually looking at it now by Hamish Stewart. And the opening page, he's talking about fishing in Scotland, and there's a plate beside him. There's a basket of it's like a fish kill, salmon and sea trout. But the opening line is, "There's no doubt in my mind that the fishing in Lough was far superior 30 years ago than what it is now." And that was written in 1900. So so for that reason, yeah, I decided to keep a diary. And just going back on my own diary, seasons change. Everything fluctuates, goes up and down. You're dealing with a natural resource.
And tell me, how did you get into guiding? Was it something that you wanted to make a career out of?
It's hard to know. It's something I more or less fell into rather than something I actually made a really conscious decision about. I started guiding when I was about 20, 25, 26, but part-time. And might have been a bit younger. Yeah, basically that's what it was. I just come back. I'd done a small bit of traveling, and I just came back and got an opportunity to make a few quid, and sort of followed through from that. I was doing it part time, then I went at it full time, and basically everything followed on from that. So yeah, to say was it a conscious decision? I couldn't really say it was. I don't think it was. Maybe subconsciously it was. Maybe it's because I was doing something that I really enjoyed and been involved with something I really liked, and I just ended up doing it.
And how did you make a full-time living out of fly fishing?
Yeah, I mean, I think what happened was once I'd gotten into the guiding, I had to realize, well, how am I going to make a living out of this? And you realize that, just in guiding itself alone, you probably won't. And to get other means and methods, whereas where you can do it. And that's always been the case. Now, I've been a guide all the time. I have worked for some fishing tackle farms. I was 7 years covering Ireland for Hardy and Hardy and Grays. And in the last couple of years, I've had agencies as well for a couple of UK fishing tackle manufacturers, and I'm still the agent with Fulling Mill Flies for Ireland. So it's been a case of having a lot of arrows in your quiver, and things like that. And as I said, a bit of farming as well, whatnot.
Is it hard going?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is. I mean, it has to be, because it's not a choice you make, for monetary return, because it's you don't make a huge amount on it. I mean, what you pay for a guide in Ireland is probably, in comparison to what you pay for a guide throughout the world, is pennies. I was in New Zealand a year last January, and what a guy gets there compared to what a guy gets in Ireland is a huge difference. I mean, you're talking guide in New Zealand gets between 450 to 500, 400 euros to 520 euros a day. There are places where you'd probably get guides cheaper, maybe in other parts of the world. But as a rule, for wild trout fishing, what you're paying for guides in Ireland is generally below what the average is. Just leaving it as wild trout fishing. I suppose if you're into the free market, you could argue that the price, dictates. The price will find itself. So, I mean, that's economics. So, but I got onto this by, was it a lifestyle choice? Yeah, it has. I mean, I'm able to do something that I really enjoy as part of my livelihood, and for that I'm always grateful. Been very lucky to have done what I do. I'm very lucky to do what I do. Yeah, as people, I mean, I often get it said to me, when I be going out on the lake, clients would look around and they go, "This is a lovely office to have, Tom," and it's very true. Very true.
Do you think the COVID crisis has given us all a chance to maybe sit back and reflect on our choices in life and where we're going and want to be?
Yeah, we're discussing that. You mentioned that, and I've been talking to a couple of buddies here about it. Maybe a good thing, I should say, a good thing that may come out of this COVID is a reassessment that we don't always have to be going hell for leather, and giving 100% for everything. It's amazing when we sit back down and actually have a chance to think about things that, what are we doing a lot of this toing and froing for?
But that's the beauty of fly fishing, isn't it? It gives us the chance to step back from it all.
Yeah, well, you see, that's the thing. Fly fishing is a different thing to so many people, and it's what you can get out. And that's one of the beauties of it, I think, Dar. To some people, it's exactly as you said. To it's something you just sit back and take your time with. And then to other people, there are some people who do like to go 100% of it. But as long as they get their enjoyment out of it and they're not annoying anybody else, shall we say, that's great. It's it's what you can gain from it for yourself. But generally, I would agree with you. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just sitting back and enjoying it. There's a sort of a reappraisal about what we're doing. And so hopefully, if any good comes out of this scourge, I'll call it at the moment, it might be that, that we just have a think of maybe more people who want to go fishing than that.
So when do you think you'll be back out in the water?
As I said to you there, I don't think I'll be out guiding before July. I really don't. Now things may change. We don't know, so I can't say anything for definite. But talking to people in general and just my own feelings, it's going to be July at the earliest, I think. All the people who have to travel for May have already cancelled. A couple of Irish people still, but I'm, as I said to you, I'll probably be cancelling them now shortly. It's just you've got to. People, there's lockdown in place, there are travel restrictions, and government have put in a thing, non-essential travel, don't do it, and that's the way it is at the moment. We don't know for how long that's going to be, but let's everybody stick to what they're saying, and if people stick to these guidelines that are put in place, then it shouldn't be a problem. And listen, heed the government. That's all I'll say. Leaving the fishing aside, just on the Corvid thing, we have experts in place, and if we heed the advice they give us, so far so good. Well, I won't say so far so good, but we seem to be avoiding the huge curve that they predicted. So if that's the way, or the huge bump, let's heed the advice. Non-essential travel, don't do it, and stay at home. And hopefully, then we could all be fishing by July, and I'd like that too.
And when does the season start for you, Tom?
Generally, I used to bring people out from the opening day of the season, February the 15th, fly fishing. But to be honest, I really stopped doing that because you don't know what you're going to get. So unless it's regular clients who just want a day out, but mid-February to mid-March, you really don't know what the conditions are going to throw at you. You generally don't have a hatch of fly, so you're just pulling either wets or pulling lures. So it's, for somebody who's just coming to the Corrib for the first time, it's not a great time to try it. It can be good. Don't get me wrong, it can be good, and I've had some fantastic fishing that time of the year. But generally, I prefer it to the middle of March, around Paddy's Day. There's a good chance there's going to be a few early duck fly, and once you have a few fly around, gives you a chance for whatever the conditions are thrown at you. So from then on, so generally from Paddy's Day right on, and I'm busy then from mid-March, April and May. They're the 2.5 months they're really busy. First part of June can often be good, but then unless we're at the Canis, which I don't bother too much with, but that'll go on to June. But back then for more July, August, September, as I said, the last couple of years have been very good for that.
What's your favourite time of the year?
I think it's always been probably the duck fly time and Paddy's Day. But I think, the reason I put it down to that is because you've waited so long to see fish moving, and finally you see fish moving again, and it just, it floats my boat. Just to get out again and see, to see fish moving, it's sort of like, and it's sort of the reawakening. Everything's going to happen again. You're into another cycle. It's just that, everything's ahead of you. Yeah, so that's part of it. But every fly hatch, every other time has its plus points as well. I love all of them, but I think it's the duck fly because we're starting off again.
Tell me a bit more about that mystique around fishing the Canis hatch.
Yeah, well, one of the reasons this part of the Corrib that we're at up here doesn't get great hatches of Canis as compared to the lower Corrib, okay? Well, not exactly the lower Corrib, but down, let's say, if you drew a line across from, say, there are to Greenfields down there. So now I do it up here, and you will occasionally get good hatches, but because you're starting early in the morning, also as well, the extra bit of travel from where I am just means very, 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 very early start. So I'll do it myself and I fish it myself, but it's a thing I don't bother doing with clients. It's testing. It's fascinating. It's brilliant fishing. It's brilliant fishing when you get it right and it comes together. It is amazing.
What's the allure to it, really?
Well, I think one of the nicest parts of it is actually the time of day that you're going out. Going out from dawn, going out, and it's a beautiful time of the day to be out in the lake. And then if you get the conditions right and the Canis are hatching around, the fish can really go on them in big pods, movement, and so you have the thrill of the hunt as well as you're getting the pod, but you getting at the pod and covering them, and competing with a plethora of naturals out there. So whether they'll take yours or not, and it's just really is fun, and it is really, you got to get everything right. You can't spook them, very easily spook, because you're looking at conditions where it's very still. That's what you want, very still. You have to situate yourself in the boat right. Work as a team, one person fishing at a time. If there's two of you, it's not your classic traditional wet fly stuff. You're flying down. I use a 5-weight rod down to 6-7x tippet, and completely different equipment outfit, because patterns that I'm using are size 18, size 20, so you cannot put a normal 6-pound tippet in through it. So generally I'm finding down to I use the diameter ratio. That's what I use. So 6x, 7x. So if you're using very fine tippet like that, you cannot use a stiff or a strong rod. A 7-weight rod will snap that tippet like elastic. So you need a much more forgiving rod. So on the take, that there's give in it, that you won't break your fine tippet.
Is that your favorite type of dry fly fishing?
Dry fly fishing for me is I love my nighttime buzzer fishing. Nothing. That's my favorite. You asked me there, what's my favorite? I love, as I said, I love all types, but the nighttime dry fly buzzer fishing. I just love the mito buzzer. I absolutely adore that. I like that as it's getting darker and your senses all change, and the other senses kick in as you lose the power. I won't say the power, but as you lose the amount of sight that you have, how the others kick in, how your hearing kicks in. It's fantastic. I really like that. And to fish by sound. You hear the fish moving out in front of you, and you have to gauge where he is. You might hear me talking about it now. That's to me, that's the essence of it. To each their own. That's the beauty of the lake. That's the beauty of fly fishing. That without doubt that's my favorite one.
Tell me more about it. What time of year, for example?
Generally end of April to the end of May. It's a buzzer that we call the mito buzzer here. Basically, it starts hatching at around 9:30 in the evening. Hatch will come on coming quick and fast about 10 o'clock. And it's a very quick cycle. They hatch back on top of the water. They'll occasionally bowl where there's one female and quite a few males, and it's called a bowling buzzer. It doesn't happen all the time. And they'll be in clumps on top of the water. And to about 11:30 to 12, it starts petering off again. There are other lakes, all right, we'll go on later, but I just know from my experience here with Corrib and Mask, is generally the optimum time is probably 10:30 to 11:30. It's fantastic. I just love it. I tell you, it's the only thing to do. Yeah. And sometimes what I'll often do is you try and get the boat situated where you're looking into the gloaming. So you're casting into the gloaming. That's where the sun is set, because it's the last bit of light you can get. And you can just make out the rise form. Just about make out the rise form. It's fab.
That sounds amazing, Tom. Can't wait to try it myself. So fingers crossed for next year.
Yeah, and there'll be loads there, and there'll be loads, because there was none. No, they weren't disturbed this year at all.
Tom, it's been brilliant talking to you as usual. We didn't get to meet up on the lake this year so far, so fingers crossed for later in the year, or definitely for the nighttime buzzer fishing in 2021. Thanks again, Tom.
No, my pleasure. My pleasure, Daniel. Thank you very much. And listen, take care of yourself in these strange times, and hopefully the line we were meant to wet for doing this, we will wet it. We will.
So that's it for this week's episode of the Ireland on the Fly podcast. My thanks to Tom Doc Sullivan for talking to me this week, and a really engaging character and fantastic fisherman to boot as well. So thanks again to Tom. I'll be back next week for more about the people and places of fly fishing in Ireland. So do join me then, and also subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify so you never miss a show. I'm also on IrelandOnTheFly.com and on Instagram at IrelandOnTheFly. So do keep in touch, and thanks for listening.